let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So what is covered in this webinar? So we're going to do a time management overview. We're going to talk about bringing clarity and how to reduce stress. We're going to talk about what's important to you and how to get clear on your goals. And really a lot of it is going to be about prioritizing and talking about change. And you're going to see here, we got 2 questions, and that's a big theme as we go through our process today. This is one of my favorite quotes. It's not necessarily about time management, but maybe this is what brings you here today, is the measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it's the same problem that you had last year. And when I think about this, and maybe you also think about this when you think about time management, it's like, oh yeah, I'm in the same situation I was in last year and the year before that, and the year before that, or the month before that, or the week before that. Time management absolutely is something that is hard to grasp because it's in our heads. We definitely want to be feeling more in control. And when that loss of control happens, we start to feel stressed. So what we're going to talk about today is the tips, techniques, the strategies, the mindset that you need to be able to make that small change. Because time management is so huge and so abstract. I want you to think of this as you go through this process today, is where can you make a 10% change in your way that you manage your time? And think about the ripple effect that it has when you're able to make that 10% change in your time. Because this is the goal for time management. It's really 3 things. When you're managing your time, you're going to feel more efficient. You're going to feel more productive. And in the end, you're going to feel more happier because you're going to have a sense of more control over your time. So it's that range of skills, the tools, the mindset that, as we said, we're going to use to manage your time. But it's also is that when the pressure seems high and time is tight, professionally and personally, we're going to look at both of those elements, because a lot of what you're doing professionally is also affecting your personal life and vice versa. So we want to be able to look at how you are able to manage that. And it really is creating that environment for you to be feeling more efficient. It's also very important to be setting priorities and carrying out those activities around those priorities. So here's 2 questions that I would like you to think about as you go through this. And this is, as I said, this is going to be our theme as we go through this process today. Is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my talent? So is this the best use of my time? You know, the classic one is, am I procrastinating? And why am I procrastinating? Is it possibly a task that I don't enjoy doing, and maybe that's why I'm procrastinating? Or I'm not passionate about what I'm doing, or I feel that this is mundane. And then the other thing is that, am I doing something that should be done by somebody else? Should this have been delegated to another person? So is this the best use of my talent? Am I trying to be perfect here? Am I trying to do this all myself? Should I be asking for help? So just take a second to reflect on this. And the first activity is to actually think about the past few weeks and think about some of the tasks and activities that you've been doing, and just answer these 2 questions. Was that the best use of my time? Was that the best use of my talent? And a big part, because the reason is that a big part of our time management is, like I said, it's in our heads. We're not really articulating it. We're not really writing it down. We're not really taking a closer look at what gets in the way of our managing our time. And that's is why we all of a sudden go, oh, where did the day go? So we're going to talk a bit more about stress, but I want to get the chat going here. And here's our first question, which is, when you think of time management, how do you feel? So I'm going to ask you to type in the chat A, B, C, D, or E. And here's our questions. So do you feel A, that you're constantly juggling? Do you feel it's a lack of life, lack of work balance? You don't have that balance there going. I try. And the key word is, I try to breathe. Is it feeling of loss of control, or E, other? So put in the chat, how do you feel when you think of time management? All right, thank you. We're getting a lot of A's and B's. Oh, and Renee, you're A and B, constantly juggling and a lack of life work balance. Mika is saying lack of life work balance. Christina also is also a constantly juggling lack of life and work balance. And then Jennifer is constantly juggling. Rhonda, lack of life work balance, and Tatiana constantly juggling. Rhonda, do you feel comfortable to turn on your mic and maybe just share? You don't have to turn on your camera, but are you comfortable to maybe share that lack of life work balance when you think of time management?
I don't know if it'll come through good, but my lack of life work balance is it seems like my days extend into my evenings. So by the time I get home, I'm totally wiped out and not able to do as much personally as I'd like to.
Great. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Thank you for sharing that. And I think and the reason I had that come on, and that's great. Thank you for sharing that, is that I think people would be nodding their heads if we were able to see them. I think that resonates for so many people, which is I don't feel that I have the energy to be fully present and maybe do the things that I want to do because I feel like I've been drained at work, and I've given so much of my energy at work, which absolutely is definitely one of the things that causes us this next thing here, which is stress. Stress is, if we want to define stress, is that it's the demand and the capacity. And I think, Rhonda, what you were just saying is that, the demand of work it definitely is, there's only so much capacity that you have. And this is the gap that we have, which is right here. And that's exactly where our stress is I've got only so much demand and I've got only so much capacity. But here's the thing. What is, and here's my question to you. You can type in the chat. We've got good stress and bad stress. So what is good stress? If you could type into the chat, what is good stress? Now, I'll answer the bad stress while you're typing in the good stress. The bad stress is what we call, when it affects our mental health, when it affects our physical health, it affects our feelings of hope. So we're getting some great here thing, which is motivation from Denise. Rhonda, learning from mistakes. Renee gives us focus. Christina provides energy. Those are great answers about what good stress does. And the other thing about good stress is that as we're in time management is also realizing that there is ebbs and flows and how we take advantage of that. It's also changing our perception about looking at stress. So when we, when we articulated that stress can be positive, that it gives us motivation, that it can give us focus, that it maybe helps us achieve higher levels of expectations, then that can help us. When we get to that bad stress is when we don't realize that we have any feeling of control and that there is no change, and we allow that to take over our bodies and our minds. So we want to be able to control that. So the first thing we're going to do here is look at getting clarity. How to stop multitasking. As you can see, I'm slowing everything down here. I'm slowing my voice down. I'm slowing the thought process down, because even if we're not on our phones and we're not looking at our laptops, our brains are constantly multitasking. And Rhonda's example about coming home at night and feeling drained is because you're probably still thinking about the 20 things that you still have to do. And so that's why as we go through the process today, we're looking at our priorities. But the first thing is we need to get our breathing right. We need to get our brain right, if you want. And breath and brain are very much connected. Our brain needs 20% of our oxygen. And if it's not getting enough oxygen, it affects our ability to think straight. It affects our emotions. It affects our choice of words. It affects our thought process. So some of the things that we want to do, and this is something you could do at any moment during the day, which is taking a moment to breathe. Taking a moment to break from the screens, stop looking at the phone, close that laptop. And it literally is a moment. You could be looking out the window. One of the things that we said in this virtual environment was to stare off into the distance for 20 seconds as an example, to be able to refocus on the screen. Take a moment to close your eyes so that you're giving all those sensories a break. And take a moment to move. Physical activity, of course, is going to be so important. It helps to our well-being. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to do a quick breathing exercise that you can do at any moment. And so all together here, we're going to breathe in through our nose for 4, and then we're going to hold it for 4, and then we're going to exhale through our mouth for 8, and just see how we feel and just taking that breath. So here we go. Let's breathe in for 4 and hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale like a straw coming out of your mouth for 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. And if you're watching me, you might have even seen that my shoulders dropped just by doing that, and my voice is just lowered. And so that's all it takes to get clarity. And there's a lasting effect when we do this, because we've given our brain some oxygen, and now we're able to refocus. And this is one of the reasons we also procrastinate, is that we are trying to solve too many problems. We solve our best problems when we have downtime. So that's why shutting down that laptop, maybe going for a quick walk, looking out the window is when we're going to solve our problems, not when we're constantly doing tasks. And so that is going to be, it seems counterintuitive to not be doing something, but to be taking a minute out to stop doing something. But that's when we solve our problems, is in our downtime. Think about how many times you've solved a problem going for a walk or driving your car or washing the dishes. All right, I asked you to have a piece of paper. Here we go. We're going to do something called the Wheel of Life. And this is looking at what's important to you. And this is a visual exercise. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do in a second here. But the reason here is that you're going to see we've got, let me just get the laser pointer out here. We've got numbers here going 1 through 10, as you can see here. And we've got different categories. We've got finance, personal growth, health, family, relationships, social life, attitude, and career. So a lot of you said life-work balance was, one of those things that is a challenge in time management. And the idea here is to be able to, if you want to make this, you could do this right now, making this circle here at home. And if you're watching the webinar, you can pause here to do this. And as you said, we'll give you a handout afterwards where you can also practice this at home. But what you want to practice here with this is, as we're going to do the exercise in a bit, is go, all right, where's my finance? Oh, my finance is at a 7 out of 10. 10 would be excellent. And my finance is maybe at a 7. Maybe my finance is at a 4. And so, I could see that that's, 4, that's not really that good. I would like it to be maybe at a 7. So what do I need to do to get there? Is that something that I'm letting slip? Then maybe my personal growth at a 5. I'm not taking time to read. I'm not taking time to maybe look at some videos that I want to see, or to reach out to friends or family. And same thing with health. Maybe my health is at a 4. I've let it slip. And so what would happen here is, let's say my finance was at a 7, my personal growth was at a 5, and then we start to see maybe my family's over here at a 5, but my relationships are at a 9, and my social life is actually pretty good at a 9, but my attitude is at a 5. I mean, you start to see the ebbs and the flows, and it becomes like a bad spider web. But we could see here from looking at this that there's gaps here, maybe in my career, and maybe there's gaps here in my health where I'm low, because I want to have my numbers more ideally. And it doesn't mean we have to be at a 10. But ideally, we probably want to be more around here as something like that. So let's take a look here and have you do this. So just take a second here, and we'll go through the categories here. And what we just did, the spider web, and this is what we got here broken down to. So attitude, and people always say, well, what is attitude? Well, attitude is, am I being pessimistic? Am I being too cynical? Am I being too hard on myself? Am I being too hard on others? Am I actually, or the opposite? Am I finding a lot of joy in things? Am I pursuing things that are giving me joy and giving me happiness? Am I being pleasant with people? So attitude is a score of 1 to 10. And here's the thing: is this important for it to be a 10? Maybe your attitude is a 7 and I'm happy at a 7. Great. I don't need to do that. For example, we look at health. Maybe my health is at a 5, but I want to get it to a 7. So what am I going to do? I'm going to exercise. I'm going to walk more, watch what I eat. And the point of this exercise is that you are now articulating what is important to you. Because the thing about time management, about having that balance in feeling more of sense of control, is what is important to you, and are you giving enough time for that? And when we articulate what actually is important to us, that maybe our health is important to us, but maybe our career is also important to us. And so there's nothing wrong with maybe with working a lot, because maybe that is what gives you joy, because you are very focused on your career and that's something you want to develop. Social life has been affected by the pandemic as well. But for a lot of people, their social life gives them energy. And you could change it. So for example, you can change personal development to fun, as an example, or maybe community or volunteer activities. So you can have some fun with these categories as to what is important to you. So as you look at this, and as you might be right now, giving yourself numbers and thinking about where you want to be, and you're going, well, where do I find the time to get certain things done so that I can have more time, for example, to exercise, or maybe in my career, I feel like I don't get anything done enough in the day. So here's our first quick tip, something that you could do that's very easily, and it's called the FBOT, or focused block of time. Now, you make an appointment with a client, you make an appointment with your manager, maybe you make an appointment with a colleague, or you make an appointment with an employee. There's a good chance that while you're in that meeting with that person, that you've got your do not disturb on your chat or your Teams, or if you're in the office, you maybe booked a meeting room to have that meeting, and you're not checking your phone. Focus block of time is making a meeting with yourself. And as we said, it's about making that 10% change. So maybe you're thinking, oh, Joel, there is no way that I can book a whole hour and be not available. So if that 10% change is 15 minutes, and this is not to do all the time. This is, I've got a high priority. I've got something that really needs to get done. And I just feel that time is slipping by. Well, then tomorrow I'm going to book 15 minutes and I'm going to call it my focus block of time. It's a meeting with myself. It's in my calendar, so I'm committed to it. So I'm going to book my meetings around that time. And I'm going to start maybe that template that I need to work on, or that phone call that I need to make to that client, or that Word document that I need to start. Because again, it's 10% change. What's a small thing that I can do to make it incremental as I go forward? So focus block of time, book a time in your calendar, start with 15 minutes. And if you work in an open air office, then book that 15 minutes in a boardroom so you could be do not disturb. And if you're doing it at home and you're in a virtual environment, then put on your do not disturb on your chat, on your Teams chat, put your phone on do not disturb as well. So you really have that 50 minutes to get something that is important to you, to get it done. Because one of the big things about managing our time is we need to feel a sense of accomplishment. If we're not feeling like we're getting things done or we're moving forward, then we feel continuously exhausted because we're not actually accomplishing anything. And so accomplishing anything means that we need to be able to set goals. So before I go into this, let me ask you here, if you want to type in the chat, why are goal setting so important? And do you set goals? So why is goal setting so important? And then if you want to answer, do you set goals? You could just say yes or no. Why is goal setting so important? So yeah, Jennifer, to feel accomplished, and you do set goals, that's great. We got absolutely gives you focus and direction. Rhonda gives direction to tasks, and yes, Tatiana, purpose. Travis, objective measurement. Yes. Well, that's great. So then this is a refresher on this. But for those of you that are not setting goals, and then Denise, yes, to finalize projects, and Jenna gives you focus. You set deadlines, but not goals. And then Charmaine Yes, it allows you to complete the projects. Absolutely. Everything you just said is exactly the reasons why we want to set goals. Because it's exactly that, is that if we don't articulate where we want to go and what we want to accomplish and what needs to be done in what order, then as and this is happening more and more after the virtual, after we've gone through the pandemic, where we are so used to messaging and emailing more so than ever, and people seem to be available 24/7, we get an enormous amount of confusion, of conflicting priorities that happens. And so the question again, is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my talent? The sub question with that is that, am I doing the tasks that are getting me further or closer to my goals? And you just shared you just shared with yourself some goals that could also be personal as well. So is what I'm doing getting me further or closer to my goals? And yes, as you all said, you said that you're doing it. It does require time and effort to be able to do that. So again, long-term benefit, short-term, it does take more time and effort. So I'll share with you a couple of examples that people have shared with us around their goals. And another way to look at this is also, what are your goals? And some of them might be personal, some of them might be professional, and also looking, how do your goals fit in maybe with your team or department's goals or with your organization's goals? So I'll share with you two anecdotes. So one is a private and one is a government. So the private one was, one of the organization's goals was sustainability, as an example. They want to create, they want to be known as the organization that's, environmentally friendly, eco, green, working on being more sustainable. And so this person was in charge of produce for this organization. And so they were looking at how they could create more and find the vendor to find more sustainable packaging that actually really is recyclable. And or compost that can go into the compost. So that fit in very much with the organization's goals. And one of the things about goals is we need a sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? And this helps us keep us focused. And this is what gives us energy, because as we are doing things, but also if you have to delegate, people want to feel that they've been delegated something that goes towards a sense of purpose. We're all going towards this. And this is what gives us energy and keeps us motivated. This is the good stress. Another example we had with someone who was working in the government was they had a very complicated and robust manual. So as people were coming into the department or joining the team, they would have to go through a lot of the stuff in this very complicated and robust manual. And our hero had to usually have a one-on-one, because people would be coming in as individuals into the department, and they would have to have a one-on-one with them to go over this robust book, basically, of material. So one of the suggestions we gave to him was, you can create a PowerPoint video where you are putting the materials into the PowerPoint, but you are narrating to the slides with your video on. And this could be a great, it's going to take a lot of time and effort at the beginning, but will save you an enormous amount of time, where you're not sitting down, where you're losing a whole day spending with one person going over this robust, complicated and nuanced material. And so this could also lie in with, what are your goals when you think about in the next 7 days, in the next month, and to the end of the year? So as you look at this could be another way to look at your goals, which is, what are my goals for the end of the year, and work my way backwards. And a lot of people like to do that. And some of your goals, again, could be about that life-work balance. Could it be around health? Could it be around social life? Because if you are not happy outside of work, then that is going to affect your work. You're going to have resentment towards the things that you're doing. And the same thing, if you're not happy at work because you're not feeling like you're getting further closer to your goals, that sense of purpose as you're doing it. And again, nothing wrong with wanting to do work and enjoying work, but we want to be able to have that balance. So as you look at your goals and you did that wheel of life, is there that balance where you've got, I'm getting the energy that I need from work, and I'm getting the energy I need from my personal life, that could bring both elements. So if I'm getting the energy from work, I could maybe bring that energy home. But if that's not happening, then there is a disconnect and there's a disbalance. And so this is why it's good to look at our goals next 7 days, next month, or the next year. But to do that, we need to be able to prioritize. So you might be doing the job right, but are you doing the right job? So there has to be a strategic importance. And, we talk about a to-do list often, but that to-do list needs a ranking. So this is the one thing that we may not do, is that, let's say our goal was to do, our hero was to do that PowerPoint video as an example. So then the next thing to do would be to start making the priorities of what has to be done. If you want the tasks that have to be done. And it's not just a to-do list. You can make it as a to-do list, but then you have to be able to rank them as far as priorities. So the first thing would be to research how to make a PowerPoint video. That would be number one priority. And then, number two might be to ask for help of maybe someone who is an expert on this to be able to save time. And the reason we're ranking the priorities is that as we're getting this influx of messaging that's coming our way, and it helps us, keeps us focused about these are the commitments that we made with ourselves. And it's important that we write these things down, that we articulate it, because if not, it's in our head and then we lose track of it and we lose sight of it. So let me give you another of our quick tips here that you can implement immediately. And this is slightly off of the prioritization, which is called your end of day 3 priorities. Now, this is a little bit different than setting your big objective goal priorities. This is something you do, let's say you finish work at 5 o'clock, classic 5 o'clock, if that ever existed. At 2 minutes to 5, you sit down and you write, what are the 3 things that I want to get done tomorrow? What are my 3 priorities tomorrow? So maybe, for example, again, thinking about our PowerPoint person, maybe it's phone this person, ask for help. Maybe it's second priority is look at a demo of a PowerPoint video, and the third one is I don't know. I have to think of one for that. But the idea here is we think of 3 things that we can easily accomplish tomorrow. And we do it at the end of the day because we often solve our problems, like I said before, in our downtime. And so one of the biggest challenges, we have difficulties falling asleep because we're still thinking about all the things that we need to get done. And because we solve our problems, not just in our downtime, but our sleep as well is where we often solve our problems. If the brain doesn't know what it needs to focus on, it gets totally, absolutely distracted. So 3 things, because we remember things in 3, gold, silver, bronze. The other thing about why it's just 3 and not the 10 things that you want to get done tomorrow is, again, going back to the sense of accomplishment. 3 things set yourself up for success, because if we do 10 things, if we have 10 things on our to-do list and you only get 6 done, you're actually not going to feel a sense of accomplishment. If you can get these 3 things done, this will get you more energy. And there's a good chance that you'll get them done sort of before all the emails start coming in, because you're also starting your day with clarity. You ended your evening with it. You started to maybe already problem solve. Oh, I know who I'm going to contact about the PowerPoint. Oh, I know where I'm going to look up that information for a demo. You start to solve it overnight, so that you start the next day with clarity and you're setting yourself up for success. So this is your end of day 3 priorities, things that you know you can get accomplished tomorrow. Now, and a lot of you said about measuring. So we'll go through this. A lot of you are very familiar, I'm sure, with SMART, but I still find this always a really good refresher, because we can lose sight of it. It's in our heads again as to what SMART is, which is that specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, or results oriented, and timed, or realistic if you want. And so, specifically, these are some of the questions. So who is involved to get this done? Again, thinking about that PowerPoint, that video the person has to do. Who would be involved to get this done? What do I want to do? Where is it going to be done? What are the requirements or constraints that needs to be considered? And again, why is this goal important? Again, it's a good reminder about how this fits into the overall scheme. This is going to, why is this important? Thinking about the goals for the year. This is going to make our department much more streamlined, much more manageable. I'm going to have a lot more time to be able to coach other people because I'm not spending my time just going through this training. I'll have more time to get other tasks done. So why is it being important? But also, who is involved to get this done? One of the biggest challenges for us for time is that we don't ask for help when we need it. There has to be a measurement of success. So yes, you're going to do this PowerPoint video, but what are the milestones along the way? Because if you're not getting any closer to it and this drags on, then you're going to get into procrastination mode. So how can this be measured? And how will you have known that you have completed your goal? Is the goal maybe just to get to a test point, as an example, just to demo it and just test it out, and maybe just do a small portion of it, not do the whole thing, but maybe just try 2 or 3 slides and test it out with an audience and see where that goes. Would that be a great way to measure success? And that being said, is it attainable? Is it something that is actually doable? Now, we want to be able to grow and stretch, but sometimes we stretch it too high. And if it's too high, it's discouraging. So if this video that person is going to make with the PowerPoint and they want to make it look like a Hollywood movie and make special effects, then it's going to be too high. It's going to be too discouraging. They're going to end up procrastinating and losing too much time on getting it right. Or it's a matter about getting it just right. So one step at a time. And again, it's that feeling of sense of accomplishment, which is so important. And that's what's going to give us energy, because if we're not accomplishing anything and it just feels like it keeps piling up, then we're not moving any forward. So it's got to be relevant or realistic or results oriented. There has to be a sense of importance, like I said, sense of purpose as we're doing it. You have to buy into the goal in order to do the work necessary to be able to achieve it. And again, going back to the attainable, is it timed? Do we have a deadline for that? Otherwise, there's no sense of urgency. One of the things I always tell people is take the word should or could out of your vocabulary. Should, could, would. Take that out of the we should do this. We could do this. If only somebody would do this. Versus I am going to do this, and this is the deadline that I've set aside for that. And this is why it's important. Now, what I love about this is if you've got a Post-it note, I'll just grab it over here. If you got like these little Post-it notes, and to be able to do this and put it on a little Post-it note, this urgent, important matrix. And one of the things about the matrix here is, I'll use my little laser pointer here. This is why it's up on a Post-it note, is how you respond is the key here. So you don't have to fill this out. This is really about your mindset, about how you respond as the request is coming in. So for example, is the request coming in urgent and is important? In other words, is this getting me further or closer to the goals or to the priorities that I set for myself? Is this important, but it's not urgent? So then the question we want to ask that other person is, maybe ask them some clarifying questions. Is it urgent for them or is it urgent for me? And how does this fit into the importance? How does it fit into our sense of purpose, into our overall goals? So a lot of people will say, managers might say, oh, we need to do this or we need to do that. And this is where we need to be able to communicate and ask close clarifying questions. How does this fit into our goals? Because is it urgent for them? And why is it urgent for them? And then we've got the urgent and not important. And so those are those interruptions. And again, that can be, again, we're being interrupted. It's not important for us. But again, it's asking those clarifying questions. Was it urgent for them? And then we got the not urgent, not important. Those are those distractions. And what I'll say for that is, I don't know if you're like me, but I found that I was subscribing to a lot of newsletters, and those were distractions. It was continuously filling up my email box, and absolutely get rid of those. So let's look at this a little bit closer now, which is this. If it's urgent and it's important, it means necessary, do it now. if it's important, but it's not urgent, it can be done later, decide when to do it. So for example, urgent, necessary, do it now. We need to do a PowerPoint presentation, 3 slides. It's important for the sustainability, that we show some of the ideas that we've got for sustainability as an example. And we're meeting the vendor tomorrow, 1 o'clock, necessary, do it now. Not urgent, but important. We're meeting the vendor next week. Okay, it's important. It could be done later, and maybe I can even delegate it. We've got another request, and it's coming from somewhere else, and it sounds like it's urgent, but it's not important. It doesn't fit into our goal. So think about it. Maybe ask clarifying questions, or maybe again, delegate it. Maybe there's someone better suited to do it, maybe not you. And then again, not urgent, not important, to dump it. So let's talk about procrastination. So why we do it, self-awareness, good or bad, change the habit, future self. And then I'll whisper this because my phone is nearby. Hey, Siri. So why we do it, it's self-awareness. A good example was a client the other day was talking about their challenge with procrastination. And not only was it a task that they didn't really enjoy doing, the key here was, as we defined it a little bit more, it was a task that they actually weren't clear on what they were trying to do. And they were trying to solve it themselves, and they didn't really know what questions to ask. And this was in a training session. And then someone else in the group said, oh, you should ask so-and-so. They're really good at that. And so that's the thing. So some of the things is that, again, going back to that not important, not urgent, is we need to ask questions for clarification if we're not sure about the task. And again, we need to be able to ask for help if we're not, because if not, we're spending too much time doing it. Now, procrastination can be good or can be bad. So one of the things we talked about at the very, very beginning is taking that moment to breathe, taking that moment to maybe look out the window, taking that moment to maybe step outside and get some fresh air. As we have less of that as we're working from home. So if you are working from the office, you might have had that moment where you might have been walking down the hallway and you had that, you just needed to change the scenery. Bad procrastination is we realize that we've been spending too much time either trying to solve a task or we are avoiding that task. So we need to be able to change that habit, to be able to recognize that. And one of the things is what I like to say is future self, which is if you could look to the future. And I know this is what I do with myself all the time is if I don't get this done, I know future Joel is going to be really upset with me that, oh, Joel, what were you doing? Now I'm really behind the 8 ball. So I'm always trying to please future self. That future self will say, oh, I'm so glad past Joel did that. So we're trying to please our future self. Think about in the future about that feeling of sense of accomplishment. And then, one of the things that we always say is that we've got social media or we've got, our phones, which are huge distractions. So if you are being distracted by your phone, maybe you need that time to procrastinate because you're at a standstill and you just need the time to scroll or whatever. But this is where speaking to your virtual assistant, Siri or Alexa, and just saying, set timer for 5 minutes. So you're setting that you got your phone in your hand. You could just say, hey, Siri, set timer for 5 minutes. And there you go. So we talked about change and this is where we're going to talk a little bit about why we don't make those changes. And again, as we're talking about change and we looked at all the tools that we talked about here today, I want to stress again that it's about making small steps, not trying to do everything all at once, not trying to all of a sudden do priorities and your goals and make it smart and do a 4-quadrant prioritization and the FBOT and your 3 end-of-day priorities. It is about what's one thing that you can start to do immediately? Because if not, if you're just looking at the whole thing, then we get into the change cycle, which is I'm tired of not having this life-work balance. I'm tired of coming home and not having the energy. It's the discontent and then the breaking point. Well, that's it. I'm going to start to do some of these time management ideas and I'm going to start to put that into play. And so you hit that decision. And then a little bit of time goes and you get into fear and go, oh, I don't have time to do FBOT and 4-quadrant prioritizing and setting goals and priorities. And then the amnesia sets in, which is, it wasn't so bad. I mean, I managed for so many years to do this, and then we backtrack. So what I want to stress here as we look at this is our key moment here, is right here, is when we get to that, when we make that decision, to be able to make that decision to move forward with that and to not go back into the fear point. So that's why I keep saying it's about a small change, one thing you could put into play. And maybe it's just taking that Post-it note as an example and putting that 4-quadrant up there as one thing to start. And you could look back on this and again, be able to do that. So we're going to do questions in just a bit. But as we look at the overall, what we did, which was, starting with clarity, shutting down the laptop for a minute, looking out the window, most importantly, giving your brain some oxygen. So breathing, which is so important. Really articulating what's important to you, what's important to you about your job. Why do you do what you do? But also about that in your life, what is important to you. And if you're negating some of that, then you might be bringing some of that resentment to your work. To be able to set your goals for the week, for the month, for the year, so you've got clarity. So as you're being distracted by the things, you can ask yourself, is this getting me further or closer to my goals? And then to be able to prioritize your actions. So I know these are my goals. These are the actions that I have to do, and I've ranked them so that when things come in, I go, does this fit into the rank? And there will be some moments, obviously, there'll be a lot of times where your priorities will be thrown a curveball and you'll have to adapt. And but the thing is, if the priorities are there, it brings you back home to that. And to be able to use that SMART. And I know we're all familiar with SMART, but again, it's good to be asking ourselves those questions about being specific and measurable and attainable. And that the important urgent matrix about how you receive things. And then again, realizing where you are at in the cycle of change. Because these are our two questions, which we started, how we started and how we're going to end here before I take your questions, which is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my talent? And these are, start here with these two questions as you do that. So we're going to take your questions, and as you're thinking of your questions and you're going to type them in the chat, I just want to share you a little bit more about the resources that are available to you at the at Great Canadian Training. So, as we talked about, we look here at some of all the courses that we've done, and we have completely changed all of our professional skills courses to really be much more current and more interactive and more engaging. So if we look at our professional skills, and if you want more around time management, we've got our time management courses that are coming up. We've got our public courses right here, Taking the Stress Out with Great Time Management. You could see here they're happening on May 10th, June 30th, and August 12th, where you can really practice and go much more in depth with some of the time management issues. And if you like what you've heard in the webinars today, and now you want to do more into delegation, well, then right over here, delegation, the art of delegating effectively. We got some upcoming classes in July, August, and October. And of course, if you want to do this for your organization, we've got we can do a private class, of course, for your organization. These are the public classes. We talked about some of the new classes we got going, facilitation and presentation skills as well, which is so important, especially around the virtual world and the hybrid world. So we got 2 virtual facilitation classes. We got our first one, Lights, Camera, Action, Mastering the Art of Virtual Facilitation, and then taking to the next level, which is right there to the next level, but also inspiring and delivering great presentations. Public speaking is probably one of our #1 fears. So a lot of these courses is going to help you to be able to not just have more confidence in how you speak, but how you inspire, how you engage people to get them to do actions. One more thing here before we go to questions is we got our free resources. Oops, sorry. We've got our free resources right here. We've got our blog, all the webinars previous, our podcast, as we said. So once again, ask me about our podcast. and you got it right there. So let's go back and take your questions. All right, so we got some questions here that were submitted earlier. So what about delegating? Any tips to make it more effective, and any email hacks? Yes. Well, let's talk about delegation first, because that's one of the things we keep saying. You need to ask for help if you want to be effective in managing your time. There's a few things here in delegation. One is communication. So really being very clear on what it is you're delegating, and again, the context. But you're welcome, Christina. Thank you so much glad you enjoyed the webinar. You want to be clear so that the person knows exactly what's being asked of them and how it fits into the overall goals. So that sense of purpose, again, is really important. And also, what are your expectations for the results? So being clear on that. In other words, when is good enough? And being clear what good enough will look like. And then you can help that person maybe get to excellence. So two things that are really important, which is communication, delegation, and the last one, communication and expectations. And then the last one, of course, is around the idea of my door is always open, which we want to say, which is good and bad. It's good, obviously, you're showing support. The challenge with my door is always open is it leaves it ambiguous for the person, which is, should I keep checking in with you? Is this okay? Is this okay? And the other way is, oh, I don't want to disturb them. So better to set milestones about, here you go, here's the task. This is how it fits into a sense of purpose. This is what good is going to look like. And then finally, let's meet, let's put on our calendars in 2 days or 3 days or next week. Let's put 15 minutes and you can start and I can answer any questions that you have. So this way they've already started the task. They know they're going to be expected to have some questions, and you let them know if there's an emergency, let me know. But this way you won't be continuously disturbed. And then our other question here was any email hacks. Well, you could borrow from the world of Nike, Google, and HBO, which came up with some email hacks around that, which is using the subject line more often. So one of them is they have something called NNTR, which means no need to respond. So this stops the whole thank you, you're welcome, have a great weekend, you too, that's so nice, right back at you. So no need to respond, it can go in the subject line. So as people are looking at the email, they know they don't have to respond with a thank you, because we want to be polite. So we're just letting them know it's okay, we're not being polite, this is all the information you need, we don't need to create an email trail around it. The other one is from Nike, Google, and HBO is they also use something called EOM, which means end of message. So they'll put the request in the subject line and then put EOM afterwards, which means end of message, which means the person doesn't have to read the rest of the email. Everything right there is in the subject line. So great question, and thank you for submitting them earlier. Any other questions around time management? All right. Well, I want to, and again, if anyone has any questions, I'll just sort of sign off here. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us here today at Great Canadian Training to talk about, and CompUEs to talk to us about this. Thank you, Rhonda. Absolutely. Thank you for jumping on and as well. So glad to hear that there was some great tips to begin to work on. And that's absolutely the thing I want to leave you with is exactly that, which is these are tips to begin to work on. Take one or two, start working on that to make that your new habit, your new behavior, and see how that has maybe a 10% change in what you're doing. Charmaine, thank you so much. I'm glad this webinar was very informative. Really appreciate that. So thank you all for joining us today at this webinar. Again, head on over to greatcanadiantraining.ca for the podcast, for free resources, and also look at our lineup of courses that are going to support this time management course or anything to do with your technical skills as well. Thank you so much, Tatiana, and thank you, Denise, for joining us as well.